Listen carefully, because what I am about to tell you breaks one of the oldest illusions men still cling to, the illusion that women fall for the man who gives them everything. They don't. They fall for the man who could walk away at any moment and doesn't need their approval to breathe. I learned this the hard way, through years of bending myself into shapes I thought women wanted. The listener, the rescuer, the perfect gentleman. I smiled when I wanted to roar. I apologized for truths I hadn't even spoken yet. And the cruel irony. The more I tried to please, the less they respected me. There's a law written somewhere deep inside human attraction. Older than language, older than morality. Women don't admire the man who kneels for love. They admire the one who stands alone, unshaken, even when she tests every wall he built. You can call it arrogance, detachment, or mystery. But nature calls it selective power, the quiet force that separates those who need connection from those who command it. I used to believe approval was love, that if she smiled, I was safe. If she was angry, I had failed. But what I didn't see was how every moment I sought validation, I gave away something sacred, my authority. Every "do you still love me" was a withdrawal from the bank of self-respect. Every desperate text, every anxious check of my phone was a small prayer to a false god. And here's the devastating truth. When a woman senses you, we made her opinion your compass, she stops trusting your direction. She stops seeing you as a man and starts seeing you as another follower of her moods. She doesn't want that, not really. She wants to orbit something steady, something that doesn't beg to be seen. I used to think distance killed love, but what I've learned is that dependence does, because love cannot breathe where approval is oxygen. I remember one night that still makes me sick to my stomach. She had gone silent, not angry, not loud, just quiet. And that silence was enough to turn me into a beggar. I texted her twice, then 3 times, then a long paragraph explaining how I didn't mean to sound distant that morning. She didn't reply. I stared at those blue ticks like they were a heartbeat I was trying to revive. I refreshed her story, checked if she was online, and every minute that passed felt like I was shrinking into something smaller than a man. Something needy, desperate, invisible. That's the trap most men never see themselves falling into. It doesn't start with drama, it starts with concern. You just want peace, you want to make things right. You tell yourself you're being understanding, emotionally intelligent, a good partner. But underneath that calm language hides the truth. You're negotiating for approval. You're hoping that if you just say the right words, she'll give you back permission to feel okay. It's a drug disguised as love, the need to be seen as good in her eyes, and the withdrawal from that drug is brutal. I used to think love was measured by how quickly I could fix her sadness. If she looked distant, I took it personally. If she was quiet, I assumed I'd done something wrong. I turned every mood into a referendum on my worth, and slowly, without realizing it, I built my identity around her emotional weather. That's how men lose themselves, not in one explosion, but in 1,000 small compromises, each one justified as care. She sighs, and you change your tone. She frowns, and you rewrite your truth. She withdraws affection, and you offer more of yourself, hoping she'll notice your sacrifice. But she doesn't, because subconsciously she's testing something far more primal, your center. She wants to know if your world collapses when she withdraws warmth. If it does, she's no longer safe with you, because she can feel your need. And here's the paradox most men never decode. The more you chase reassurance, the less she believes you're worth trusting. The more you perform goodness to be loved, the more she senses the emptiness underneath. I've been that man, waiting for a text like it was oxygen, watching her eyes for micro-approval like a starving animal waiting for crumbs. And every time she pulled away, I ran faster. Every time she tested my boundaries, I lowered them, thinking it would make her stay. But she wasn't leaving because I wasn't enough. She was leaving because I had made her the judge of my enoughness. That's the moment when love turns into dependence, when the masculine core dissolves into apology. And once that happens, she may smile, she may stay, but something inside her has already gone cold. There's a reason women lose interest the moment they sense a man needs their approval, and it is not cruelty. It's biology. Deep inside her subconscious, a woman is always scanning for stability, not comfort, not niceness, stability, the kind of grounded certainty that can survive her storms. Evolution programmed this instinct long before dating apps and love languages existed. Back when survival depended on her ability to choose a man whose emotions didn't shatter under pressure. When a woman tests you, pulls away, withdraws warmth, criticizes you without cause, she's not trying to destroy you. She's trying to feel you. She's measuring whether your sense of self depends on her mood. If it does, you fail the test instantly. Because to her nervous system, a man who breaks under emotional tension feels unsafe. That's the forbidden mechanism. Approval dependence triggers biological disgust. Most men think attraction is about giving women what they want. It's not. Attraction is about signaling that you can withstand what they feel. The same impulse that makes her lean into your chest during chaos will make her pull away the moment she feels you need her to tell you who you are. You see, women are masters of emotional feedback. They mirror what you project. If you project uncertainty, they become restless. If you project need, they withdraw. If you project calm, they soften. And that is why so many men live trapped in the cycle of confusion, because they react to her reactions, unaware that she's simply reflecting the instability they broadcast. When you seek her approval, you activate a primitive alert system in her mind that whispers, "This man can lead." Not because leadership means domination, but because leadership means emotional containment. She wants to feel your strength, not in your muscles, but in your stillness, in your ability to absorb her chaos without drowning in it. Think of it like polarity, two magnetic fields. If both are unstable, they repel. But when one holds steady, the other naturally aligns. Masculine energy at its core is that steady field. Feminine energy is movement, emotional weather, shifting tides. When you need her approval, you abandon your field and enter hers. Now two waves crash instead of one grounding the other. That's why she grows colder when you chase. That's why she smiles when you detach. She's not responding to your words. She's responding to your center of gravity. It's a silent language older than speech. When she feels your stability, her nervous system relaxes. When she feels your need, it prepares for loss. Because the body remembers, men who depend on emotion for validation can't protect. They collapse. Every "are you mad at me" sounds to her subconscious like, "I can't hold the frame." Every "did I do something wrong" sounds like, "You lead, I'll follow." And that inversion kills attraction faster than infidelity ever could. Women don't consciously plan this. Most don't even understand why they pull away from good men. But at a biological level, they're wired to test, to probe, to make sure your self-worth isn't something they can break. It's cruel only if you misunderstand it, because what she's really asking without words is simple. Can I trust you to stay the same when I'm not easy to love? When you fail that test, when you seek comfort instead of holding frame, she loses something sacred, the sense that you are her anchor in a world that moves too much. That's why approval addiction is fatal. Because once you need her to validate your identity, you've already surrendered the only thing that made you attractive, your independence from her validation. The man she truly desires isn't the one who pleases her. It's the one whose peace she can't shake. You can watch this pattern play out everywhere once you learn to see it. It starts small, in texts, in glances, in the quiet panic that lives behind the question, "Is she upset with me?" But over time, that question grows teeth. It shapes who you become. Let's start with dating. The first few weeks, everything feels electric. You're confident, you're funny, you're in control. You're being yourself because you haven't made her opinion your mirror yet. But the moment she withdraws affection, even slightly, something in you tightens. You start editing your words. You start measuring your worth by her tone. She frowns, and you lose focus at work. She laughs at another man's joke, and your chest burns with shame. You tell yourself it's because you care, but it's not care. It's captivity. Women can feel that shift. They might not say it, but they sense it, the way your energy tilts from presence to performance. You go from leading the dance to trying not to step on her toes. And from that moment, the polarity begins to die. Because she can no longer relax into your frame, she now has to hold it for both of you. Now, scale that forward. Marriage. Years of subtle approval-seeking harden into habits. You stop disagreeing to keep the peace. You avoid confrontation, thinking you're being loving. You give up your mission, your purpose, the parts of you that make you magnetic, all in the name of compromise. But compromise without integrity isn't love. It's slow erosion. You wake up one morning realizing you've become domesticated, not by force, but by fear. You apologize for your ambition because it makes her insecure. You suppress your anger because it might upset her. You hide your needs because you're terrified of being called selfish. And one day, when you finally explode from years of quiet resentment, she looks at you not with sympathy but confusion because she doesn't even recognize the man you've become. She didn't want your compliance. She wanted your conviction. And here's the dark irony. The more approval you give up your truth to earn, the more she doubts you even have one. Because women, at their core, crave orientation. A man who knows where he's going even when the map burns. But this spiral doesn't stop in relationships. It scales to society itself. Look around. Entire generations of men apologizing for their existence, neutering their instincts, terrified of offending anyone, and wondering why they feel hollow. We've replaced backbone with emotional awareness, strength with sensitivity, mission with comfort, and we call it progress. But it's decay. You can see it in workplaces too. The man who used to command a room now seeks consensus before every move. He's learned that safety is more rewarded than truth. So he smiles when he's disrespected. He laughs at insults. He bites his tongue while his boundaries rot. He's praised as balanced and empathetic, but inside he's dying. Because a man who's trained to please can't lead, not a woman, not a team, not even himself. This is the spiral of proof, the same energy pattern echoing from dating to marriage to culture, the male addiction to female approval. It's why so many men end up resentful, anxious, quietly furious at the very women they tried to please. Because at some level they know what they traded. The fire for the warmth, the direction for the validation, the authority for applause. And yet deep down, every woman still yearns for the same thing. A man she can trust to stay centered when she can tee. A man whose energy reminds her that safety doesn't come from control, but from his stability. The tragedy is that men who could have been that anchor spend their lives performing for affection that was never meant to be chased. So they live half awake, scrolling, apologizing, performing, wondering why love always feels temporary. It's not because women changed. It's because men did. Men traded respect for reassurance, and in doing so, they lost both. That's the spiral. The more you chase approval, the less you're approved of. The more you try to please, the less peace you feel, and the more you give up your truth to be chosen, the more invisible you become, because the man who needs her approval is never really seen, only tolerated. There's a specific kind of silence that follows when a man finally realizes he's been living for permission. It's not the silence of peace, it's the silence of collapse. I remember sitting in my car one night after another argument I didn't even believe in. She had said, "You've changed. You don't care like you used to." And for the first time, I didn't argue, because I knew she was right, but not in the way she thought. I had changed. I had cared so much that there was nothing left of me to care with. Every decision, every tone, every silence, calibrated to avoid disapproval. I had become a mirror reflecting her moods instead of a man reflecting his mission. That night, I looked at my own reflection in the window, and I couldn't recognize myself. My face looked calm, but my eyes were empty, like a man who'd traded his fire for acceptance and ended up with neither. That's when the truth hit me like a slow-motion car crash. I had spent years trying to be loved, but what I really wanted was to be approved of. And those are not the same thing. Love requires authenticity. Approval requires performance, and performance is exhausting. When you live for approval, you can't rest. Not really. Every smile is a test passed, every silence a grade pending. You start building your identity out of reactions, a personality sculpted by applause. But when the applause stops, and it always does, you fall into a void so deep it feels like death. I've seen it destroy men from the inside out. The friend who worked himself into the ground to provide, only to be told he was emotionally distant. The husband who gave up his purpose to be more present and ended up resented for being uninspired. The nice guy who texted good morning every day for 6 months, until the day she stopped replying, and he realized his kindness was never love, just a transaction that expired. We don't talk about what that does to a man's soul. The quiet humiliation of realizing you were never chosen for who you are, only rewarded for how well you performed the part. That realization breaks something fundamental. You stop believing in love. You start seeing every compliment as manipulation, every touch as conditional, every "I miss you" as a test. You build walls not to protect yourself from women, but from your own weakness. For years, I confused approval with connection. I thought if I could just stay agreeable enough, calm enough, kind enough, I'd be safe. But the more agreeable I became, the less alive I felt, because safety isn't life, it's anesthesia. And what's left of a man when his fire's been anesthetized? He still walks, talks, smiles, but everything real in him has gone quiet. He stops dreaming, stops fighting, stops risking. He becomes efficient at existing, but incapable of living. That's the hidden cost no one warns you about. When you make her approval your oxygen, you suffocate your own spirit. And by the time you notice, it's too late. You've trained everyone around you to love the version of you that doesn't exist anymore. It's a strange kind of funeral, where the man dies, but the performance keeps walking. He becomes what society now applauds. Harmless, soft-spoken, endlessly accommodating. He gets called a good man. But in private, he stares at the ceiling at night, feeling nothing but resentment, not toward her, but toward himself. Because deep down, he knows. She never asked him to disappear. He volunteered. And once a man gives up his own center to earn someone's affection, no amount of love can save him, because love, built on submission, always collapses under its own weight. That's when you either wake up, or you stay dead with your eyes open. There are rules for men who want to escape the approval trap, rules almost no one talks about because they go against everything we're taught about love. They're not romantic, they're not gentle, but they work because they restore the one thing every woman subconsciously searches for: a man who leads himself first. Rule 1, never chase regulation, create it. When she's distant, when she's cold, when she tests your calm, most men try to regulate through her. They text, they explain, they apologize. They're trying to borrow emotional stability from the very person testing it. Stop doing that. Your emotions are your responsibility, not her job description. When you feel her pulling away, don't move toward her. Move inward. Ground yourself in routine, in breath, in solitude. When a man stops reacting to female volatility, his energy becomes magnetic again. You stop broadcasting need, and she starts feeling safety, because stability isn't words, it's the quiet absence of panic. Rule 2, approval is a loan. Interest always comes due. Every time you chase approval, you borrow from your integrity. And like any debt, it compounds with guilt, resentment, self-doubt. So stop taking emotional loans. Start paying in truth, even when it costs you affection in the short term. If something bothers you, say it. If you disagree, stand firm. The women who can't handle honesty will leave, but they were never capable of intimacy anyway. Real love is allergic to performance. Rule 3, build a mission stronger than her mood. A man without a mission becomes a man orbiting a woman. It's gravitational law. If you don't have a purpose pulling you forward, you'll get pulled sideways into her emotions. She doesn't want to be your center. She wants to witness you anchored in something bigger. Your mission is the invisible wall that keeps attraction alive. When she feels you prioritize growth over approval, she relaxes because she finally sees a man whose energy isn't for sale. Never abandon your path to chase a relationship. That's how both are lost. Rule 4. Silence is louder than explanation. Approval-seeking men explain everything. They overcommunicate out of fear of being misunderstood, of losing connection, of being judged. But the more you explain, the less you're believed. Because leadership doesn't argue, it embodies. When you're misunderstood, stay silent. When she's emotional, hold presence, not speeches. Your stillness communicates more truth than your logic ever could. Women don't remember what you said. They remember whether they felt your strength when chaos entered the room. Rule 5, be kind, not nice. Niceness is manipulation in polite clothing. It's kindness performed for reward. Kindness, on the other hand, doesn't fear disapproval. It's truth delivered with compassion. You can tell her no and still love her. You can draw a line and still protect her. That is the paradox she finds irresistible. Strength that doesn't need to dominate to prove itself. Rule 6. Lead energy, not words. Energy leads, language follows. If your tone is anxious, your logic is irrelevant. If your energy is grounded, you don't need fancy sentences. Before you speak, check your body. Is your breathing shallow? Are your shoulders tense? She can feel that before you say a word. When you learn to regulate your energy, your presence becomes instruction without speech. That's leadership. Rule 7, never beg for peace, enforce it. You don't get peace by avoiding tension, you get it by mastering it. Set your boundaries early, calmly, and enforce them without emotion. If she disrespects them, leave. Not to punish, but to protect the frame. Peace isn't found in compliance, it's maintained by consequence. When a man stops enforcing his boundaries, he trains everyone around him to disrespect them and calls it love. These rules aren't for control, they're for containment, because love without containment is chaos. And every woman, whether she admits it or not, feels safest inside a man's containment, not his control, but his command of himself. Follow these and something strange happens. You stop chasing love and start radiating it. You stop trying to be chosen and start choosing, and paradoxically, the moment you no longer need her approval, that's when she begins to crave yours. Most men never realize that approval was the first drug they were ever given. Before lust, before success, before money, approval. A mother's smile, a teacher's praise, a woman's validation. We learned early that peace came from being liked, and we carried that addiction into every room we entered, every relationship we destroyed. But there's a version of you that existed before you learned to beg for permission, before you performed, before you apologized for your own gravity. That man is still inside you. He's quiet now, buried under years of noise, but he's not gone. He's waiting for you to stop auditioning for love and start embodying truth. Because love, real love, isn't earned through obedience, it's revealed through self-possession. When you stop chasing her approval, something strange happens. Her respect returns. The tone of her voice softens, her eyes linger longer, her tests lose their edge. Not because you manipulated her, but because you stopped worshipping her opinion like a god. You became your own reference point again, and women can feel when a man returns to his axis. The world tells men to be agreeable, to be safe, but safe men don't awaken desire. Safe men become emotional furniture, pleasant, reliable, and invisible. What women truly crave isn't danger, it's depth. And depth is born from distance, from a man who can stand still in the fire of her emotions without needing to escape or explain, from a man who listens without shrinking, who loves without losing himself, who forgives without surrendering his center. That's the paradox no one teaches you. The less you try to be good, the more trustworthy you become. Because goodness built on fear is manipulation, but goodness built on truth is power. When you reach that level of stillness, love changes shape. It stops being something you chase and becomes something that orbits you naturally. Because you are no longer a man seeking completion in her approval. You are a man offering completion through your presence. And that's the difference between the one she tolerates and the one she can't forget. So if you've spent your life trying to be chosen, stop. Stand still. Let the world rearrange around your stillness. Let women feel the weight of your absence instead of drowning in the noise of your pursuit. When you no longer need to prove your worth multiplies in silence. That is the freedom most men never taste, the quiet confidence of a man who doesn't ask to exist. And when you finally reach that state, when her opinion no longer shapes your direction, when her silence no longer shakes your peace, you'll look back at every rejection, every test, every heartbreak, and you'll understand. She never wanted your obedience. She wanted your gravity. That's what she falls for. Not the man who begs to be seen, but the man who never disappears, even when she looks away.